They took my family away from me. Because of them, my life completely fell apart. To them, my father was already dead, and the only reason for all of this was that we're black. Everything that happened to us happened simply because we're black.
Who is Jamal Thompson in 2019? Why does Jamal say he was imprisoned and his father was killed because they were black? Would these events have happened if they weren't black? Would he have lost his life? You'll learn all about it soon. But before we begin, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This way, the video will reach more people, and you might even help prevent someone from going to jail. Jamal Thompson was born in 1994, a third-generation American citizen on his mother's side and second generation on his father's side. Jamal's family had migrated from the South, unable to make a living there. Jamal's father, Marcus Thompson, worked as a line worker in a financially struggling family. His mother, Patricia Thompson, also worked as a cleaning lady. The Thompson family, living on a modest income, resided in a two-story, small but love-filled house. The most important figure in this house was undoubtedly Jamal's grandfather, William Big Will Thompson. Big Will was an experienced man born in 1943, a Korean War veteran. He had joined the Army at a young age, and after returning from war, settled in Detroit working in construction. This 76-year-old man was a family's spiritual pillar, a role model for the children, and a respected elder in the neighborhood. Jamal spent almost his entire childhood with his grandfather. Big Will would take him fishing, tell him old war stories, and teach him how to cope with life's difficulties. From childhood, his grandfather had always taught him that instead of resorting to violence, he should resolve everything through communication, but apparently this hadn't worked out so well. The Thompson family lived a relatively peaceful life in East Side. Marcus and Patricia focused on giving their children a good education and were proud of the academic achievements of Jamal and his two siblings, Keisha and Damon. Jamal was particularly talented in mathematics and science, and his teachers encouraged him to study engineering. Their neighborhood was a typical working-class area. Mostly African-American families lived there. Everyone knew each other. Children played in the streets, and adults chatted on their doorsteps. However, in recent years, there had been demographic changes in the neighborhood. The gentrification process, with the renovation of some old houses, had caused white families to move in, which sometimes led to tensions. Murphy's Corner Coffee had been operating for 30 years and was now known by everyone. Its owner, Patrick Murphy, was a child of Irish immigrants, known by everyone as a quiet person. The coffee house was especially a meeting point for a retired white man. Regular customers included names like James Jimmy Sullivan, Robert Bobby Martinez, Thomas Tommy O'Brien, and David Dave Kowalski. These four men, ranging in age from 45 to 65, were mostly unemployed or retired men. Jimmy Sullivan was a former construction worker. Bobby Martinez was a retired police officer. Tommy O'Brien was an unemployed factory worker. And Dave Kowalski was a retired truck driver. They all considered the coffee house their second home and spent most of their days there. Initially, there was no problem between the Thompson family and the coffee house customers. Jamal and his siblings would sometimes pass by the coffee house, and Big would occasionally go in for coffee. However, from late 2018, especially as demographic changes in the neighborhood accelerated, attitudes began to change.
The hatred of the daily coffee house visitors toward the Thompson family was growing for unknown reasons. What initially was limited to looks and grumbles gradually turned into more open insults. When Big Will entered the coffee house, conversations at tables would stop and everyone would stare at him. The Thompsons actually knew they were hated, but didn't take it too seriously to avoid creating problems. Marcus and Patricia, however, were beginning to worry. Jamal said nothing to avoid upsetting his grandfather, but he felt the growing anger inside him. In early 2019, the situation worsened. Coffee house customers began behaving increasingly provocatively when passing by the Thompson family's house. Almost every time they passed by the Thompsons' house, they would look inside, turn up their music, and start bothering the family with such behaviors. Jamal's situation at that time was typical of a young adult. He was studying electrical engineering at community college, working part-time at an automotive service, making future plans. He had a wide circle of friends and a serious relationship with his girlfriend, Alicia Williams. He had no criminal record and didn't use alcohol or drugs. But inside him, there was growing anger against the increasing hostility toward his grandfather and family. This anger was slowly growing like a fire that no one had noticed until then. Jamal Thompson's childhood told the typical story of many African American children, filled with difficulties but also strengthened by family love, spent in Detroit's East Side neighborhood. Born in the mid-1990s, Jamal had grown up in a loving environment despite the family's economic hardships. His earliest memories were filled with time spent with his grandfather, Big Will. Big Will would wake up early every morning and wake Jamal, preparing breakfast together. These morning routines were the most beautiful moments in the world for little Jamal. While telling him stories, Big Will would teach him how to make scrambled eggs and talk about the importance of life's small details.
Now everything would change. That day was approaching. Events were growing day by day, and Jamal's patience was running out. But no one expected the course of these events to unfold this way. In the last week of March, the coffee house customers' behavior took on a new dimension. Jimmy Sullivan, Bobby Martinez, Tommy O'Brien, and Dave Kowalski were no longer satisfied with just looks and grumbles. They had started shouting from their cars when passing by the Thompson family's house. Words like, "Go back where you came from," and "This is our neighborhood," began poisoning the peaceful atmosphere of the neighborhood. Big Will was increasingly affected by the situation. The 76-year-old man had always maintained a composure against the racism he faced throughout his life, adopting the approach that they'll learn in time. However, this time was different. Old age had made him more fragile, both physically and psychologically. At the beginning of April, the first serious incident occurred. Big Will had gone to Murphy's Corner for coffee, as usual. When he entered, Tommy O'Brien, sitting at one of the tables, said loudly, "Look what the cat dragged in," causing the other customers to laugh. Big Will, as always, didn't react and quietly ordered his coffee. However, sitting at his table, it was impossible not to hear the conversations coming from behind. "I fought in Korea so that my neighborhood wouldn't be overrun by these people." Bobby Martinez's voice echoed in the coffee house. "And now look at this place. Property values going down, crime going up. It's a damn shame." These words deeply wounded Big Will, despite being a Korean War veteran himself. Seeing people who fought alongside him in the same war view him as an unwanted person caused the old man's morale to collapse. When he returned home that evening, he began talking about these issues with his family for the first time. "Jamal, maybe I shouldn't have gone there," Big Will said to his grandson. "Maybe they're right. Maybe that's not our place." Hearing these words, the anger inside Jamal was boiling over, but he suppressed his reaction to avoid upsetting his grandfather further. In May, the situation worsened. The coffee house customers were no longer satisfied with just verbal harassment and had begun physical intimidation. When Jimmy Sullivan saw Big Will in the coffee house, he would deliberately bump into his shoulder when passing by, dismissing it as an accident. Dave Kowalski would deliberately trip over the old man's foot when passing by his table and say, "Oops, didn't see you there, old man." These types of incidents increased day by day, and Big Will's psychological condition visibly deteriorated. He used to wake up cheerfully every morning and wake Jamal to have breakfast together. Now he struggled to get out of his bedroom, had lost his appetite, and constantly looked worried. Marcus and Patricia, worried about their father's condition, decided to take him to a doctor. The doctor said that Big Will's blood pressure had risen to dangerous levels, and he was showing signs of stress and anxiety. Medication treatment was started, but the main problem was psychological, and as long as this problem continued, physical symptoms would also increase. In mid-June, the situation reached a critical point. The coffee house customers were no longer satisfied with just Big Will and had started targeting the entire family. When Jamal returned home from work, he found Dave Kowalski by his car. There were scratches on the car, and the windshield wipers were broken. "Oh, sorry about your car, boy," Kowalski said in a mocking tone. "Must be some punk kids. You know how they are in this neighborhood." Jamal felt his hands trembling, but controlled himself. "No problem," he said, and got in his car. At the beginning of July, the final straw came. Big Will had decided to go to Murphy's Corner one last time. "I won't go again," he told the family. "But one last time, I'll talk to them properly." That morning, when Big Will went to the coffee house, he encountered the 4 customers. He approached them and began speaking respectfully. "Gentlemen, I think we have a misunderstanding. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years. I serve my country, just like some of you." Jimmy Sullivan stood up. "Listen here, old man. We don't want her kind here. This used to be a decent neighborhood before you people moved in." Tears appeared in Big Will's eyes. "Please, I just want to drink my coffee in peace. I'm not bothering anyone." Bobby Martinez joined in. "You're bothering us just by being here. We fought for this country, and this is our reward." These words deeply wounded Big Will. The old man tried to say, trembling, "I fought too in Korea?" But Tommy O'Brien cut him off. "Yeah, right, old man. I bet you were cleaning toilets while real men were fighting." Dave Kowalski delivered the final blow. "Look at him shake. Probably on drugs like the rest of his family. I bet his grandson is dealing crack to our kids." This accusation was a final blow for Big Will. The old man tried to say, "My grandson is a good boy," while clutching his chest, but he was having trouble breathing. Big Will, feeling the pain in his chest, stumbled toward the door. He had to walk home because he was in no condition to drive his car. At home, when Patricia found him, Big Will was lying on the floor. An ambulance was called, but it was too late. He had suffered a massive heart attack. He died in the hospital 2 hours later. Big Will's last words to Patricia were, "Tell Jamal that they were right." Hearing these words, Jamal's world collapsed. The next morning, while making funeral arrangements, Jamal decided to go to Murphy's Corner. He found the 4 customers there, drinking their coffee and laughing. Jamal calmly said, "My grandfather died yesterday because of what you did to him." Bobby Martinez shrugged. "Old people die. That's nature. Nothing to do with us." Dave Kowalski said the worst thing. "Good riddance. One less welfare leech in the neighborhood." Hearing these words, Jamal forgot his grandfather's teachings. The anger inside him became uncontrollable. That night, he remembered his grandfather's shotgun. He decided to become a shooter. On the morning of September 14th, 2019, everyone's daily routine in Detroit's East Side neighborhood began as usual. No one knew that this ordinary Saturday morning would turn into the bloodiest day in the neighborhood's history. While 4 customers at Murphy's Corner Coffee House were sipping their coffee and discussing weekend plans, Jamal Thompson was making his final preparations at home. Having spent the night without sleep, Jamal got up at 6 a.m. His mind was clear, his decision firm. It was time to act. For the 2 months since his grandfather Big Will's death, he had perfected his plan. He had thought through every detail, calculated every possibility. Today was the day of reckoning. First, he took Big Will's Remington 870 shotgun from the garage, left over from his war days. The gun was in perfect condition because Big Will regularly cleaned and maintained it. Jamal checked, loaded the gun, and released the safety catch the way his grandfather had taught him. His family was sleeping. Marcus and Patricia had talked about Big Will's funeral expenses until late hours and were exhausted. Jamal quietly left the house, choosing to walk instead of taking his car. Murphy's Corner Coffee House was only 2 blocks away, and walking would give him more time to think.
The morning was cool and foggy. The streets were still empty. Only a few early morning joggers were visible. Jamal had hidden the gun inside a long coat and appeared to be taking a normal morning walk. His grandfather's voice echoed in his head. "Don't respond to violence with violence, Jamal." But this time he silenced that voice. As he approached Murphy's Corner, he saw that the lights inside were on. The coffee house always opened at 6:30 a.m., and Patrick Murphy usually came at 6 o'clock to prepare. The 4 customers also always came early, being the first customers of the day at the coffee house. At 7:45, Jamal entered through the door of Murphy's Corner. Inside, there were exactly 4 people as he expected. Jimmy Sullivan was reading a newspaper at the table in the left corner. Bobby Martinez was chatting with Patrick Murphy by the counter, and Tommy O'Brien and Dave Kowalski were sitting at the table by the window watching outside. Patrick Murphy was surprised to see Jamal. "Can I help you, son?" he said. Jamal suddenly pulled out his gun when no one expected it and pointed it at Patrick. "I want you to get out. This doesn't concern you." Murphy's face turned white. Raising his hands in the air, he said, "Please, I don't want any trouble," and ran toward the back door. The 4 customers reacted differently to this situation. Jimmy Sullivan dropped his newspaper and shouted, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" But Jamal seemed not to hear anything. Jamal pointed the gun at Jimmy. "I'm doing what my grandfather couldn't do. I'm fighting back." Bobby Martinez, being a retired police officer, tried to take control of the situation. "Look, kid, put the gun down. We can talk about this." "Talk." Jamal's voice was trembling with anger. "You talked my grandfather to death. You killed him with your words, your hate, your racism." Tommy O'Brien tried to stand up. "Now wait a minute. We didn't do anything to your grandfather. He died because of what you said to him." Jamal pulled back the shotgun slide. "He died because you made him believe he didn't belong here." Dave Kowalski maintained his mockery until the last moment. "Listen here, boy. Your grandfather was weak. He couldn't handle the truth. That's not our fault." These words were Jamal's last drop. "The truth," he shouted. "The truth is that he fought for this country just like you did. The truth is that he was a better man than any of you." Jimmy Sullivan tried to intervene. "Look, maybe we were a little hard on the old man, but..." Now Jamal realized there was no turning back from here, and he wasn't hearing any words said from the side to make him stop. Jamal fired his first shot at Jimmy Sullivan. The 12-gauge buckshot hit Jimmy's chest from 8 feet away. The impact was so powerful that it threw Jimmy backward from his chair into the wall. He died instantly. Bobby Martinez tried to hide behind the table with his police experience, but Jamal fired his second shot at his head. The ex-cop collapsed to the ground and stopped moving. Tommy O'Brien tried to run toward the back door, but the coffee house's narrow layout wasn't enough for him. Jamal fired his third shot at Tommy's back. O'Brien fell to the ground before reaching the door. Dave Kowalski was the last person and desperately started pleading with Jamal. "Please don't kill me. I have grandchildren. I'm sorry for what we said." Jamal reloaded the shotgun. "My grandfather had grandchildren too. He had me, and you killed him." Jamal was preparing to fire his last shot. He fired his fourth and final shot at Dave Kowalski's head. The entire incident had lasted 90 seconds. Murphy's Corner Coffee House was filled with the smell of smoke and blood. 4 men lay on the ground, motionless. Jamal dropped the shotgun and took out his cell phone. He called 911 and said in a calm voice, "I just killed 4 men at Murphy's Corner Coffee House on East Side. My name is Jamal Thompson. I'm not running away. I'll wait here for the police." Not even 5 minutes had passed since the incident when police car sirens began to be heard from outside. When the first police car arrived, Jamal came out with his hands up. "I'm Jamal Thompson," he said. "I called you." The first to enter was Detective Sarah Chin. Since Jamal appeared calm from the outside, Sarah Chin didn't initially believe he had done this. "Why did you do this?"
Chin asked.
Jamal's answer was simple. "Because they killed my grandfather. Not with bullets, but with hate. Someone had to make them pay." 4 bodies were found at the crime scene in the coffee house. Jamal had already confessed to his crime. Media response was immediate and intense. While the hashtag Justice for Big Will was trending on social media, some began viewing Jamal as a hero, while others began defining him as a cold-blooded killer. Jamal's first statement was given at the police station. "Do you understand what you've done?" asked FBI agent Marcus Williams. "I understand perfectly," said Jamal. "I killed 4 racist men who tortured my grandfather to death. I'm not sorry about that." Legal proceedings began quickly. District Attorney Michael Rodriguez filed 4 counts of first-degree murder charges. The trial date was set for November 2019. While waiting for trial in prison, Jamal thought about his grandfather every night. "No, Grandpa," Jamal whispered in his cell. "They were wrong, and I made sure they'll never hurt anyone else." Jamal Thompson's story was just beginning. He faced a long trial process and probably a life sentence. But that night, lying in his cell, he was able to sleep peacefully for the first time in 2 months. Had justice been served? The answer to this question would be left to the jury. Jamal Thompson's legal process would become one of America's most controversial cases regarding racial tensions and vigilante justice. After surrendering following the killing of 4 people at Murphy's Corner Coffee House on September 14, 2019, Jamal was detained at the Detroit Police Department and his first statement was taken. After examining the case file, Wayne County Prosecutor's Office charged Jamal Thompson with 4 counts of first-degree murder. District Attorney Michael Rodriguez emphasized the premeditated nature of the incident, stating, "This was not just a moment of anger, it was a planned massacre." David Kim, appointed as Jamal's defense attorney, was aware of the complexity of this case despite being an experienced criminal lawyer. In their first meeting, Kim suggested an insanity plea to Jamal, but Jamal firmly rejected this suggestion. "I wasn't insane when I killed them," Jamal said. "I was angry, but I knew exactly what I was doing." Media coverage was immediate and intense. While the hashtag Justice for Big Will was trending on social media, the case caught the attention of racial justice activists. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, issued a statement referring to the tragic consequences of systematic racism.
The pretrial phase lasted 9 months. During this process, David Kim examined Big Will's medical records, spoke with neighborhood residents, and tried to gather documented evidence of racial harassment. Judge Patricia Williams was appointed as the experienced judge to preside over the case. Jury selection was a challenging process. It was difficult to find potential jurors who didn't have opinions about the case because media coverage had been extensive. The trial began on June 15, 2020, right at the height of the George Floyd protests. Although the timing was coincidental, public attention to racial justice issues brought additional scrutiny to the case. The prosecution's opening statement was clear and direct. Assistant DA Sarah Chin said, "This case is about 4 innocent men who were brutally murdered." Defense's opening statement presented a different narrative. David Kim focused on telling the jury about Big Will's suffering, saying, "This is a case about a young man who watched his beloved grandfather tortured to death by racist harassment." The most dramatic moment was Jamal's own testimony. Defense attorney Kim made the risky decision to put Jamal on the witness stand. "They didn't just kill my grandfather's body," Jamal said, tears in his eyes. "They killed his spirit, his dignity, his will to live." The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal. Assistant DA Chin asked Jamal, "Do you believe murder is justified when someone hurts your feelings?" Jamal's response was firm. This wasn't about hurt feelings. This was about systematic torture of an old man who served his country. Jury deliberation lasted 4 days. On June 19, 2020, the verdict was read, guilty of 4 counts of second-degree murder. While the jury recognized premeditation, they viewed extreme emotional disturbance as a mitigating factor. At the sentencing hearing, Judge Williams gave Jamal a 28 years to life prison sentence. "Your pain was real, your grandfather's suffering was real, but murder can never be the answer," she said. Jamal's reaction was stoic. 28 years is a long time, but my grandfather's honor was worth it. Beginning life at Michigan Department of Corrections Ionia Correctional Facility, Jamal Thompson didn't yet know what kind of person he would become in the prison he entered at age 26. For Jamal, who had a 28 years to life sentence, these concrete walls and razor wire would be not just punishment, but also a place of transformation. The first days were brutal. Due to his high-profile case, Jamal's story was known among the prison population. While some inmates saw him as a hero, others considered him a potential threat. His cellmate Marcus Williams was an experienced prisoner serving 15 years. Williams taught Jamal the prison survival guide. Keep your head down, mind your own business, and find something to occupy your time. For the first 6 months, he struggled with depression. Prison psychologist Dr. Jennifer Hayes held weekly sessions with Jamal. "You're experiencing grief, not just for your grandfather, but for the life you've lost," she explained. During this period, contact with his family was minimal. Marcus and Patricia felt conflicted about visiting due to shame and confusion. A year later, Jamal made a major decision. He would join the education program. Learning that college courses were available in prison, Jamal decided to complete a bachelor's degree. He chose social work as his major. Educational coordinator Sarah Mitchell was impressed by Jamal's motivation. He was one of the most dedicated students I've ever worked with. In his second year, Jamal began volunteering at the prison library. He organized reading programs and taught literacy to other inmates. This work was therapeutic, helping others help him process his own guilt and anger. In his third year, Jamal experienced a significant incident. Derek Walsh, a white supremacist gang member, confronted Jamal. "You think you're some kind of hero, killing innocent white men?" A fight seemed inevitable, but Jamal took a different approach. "Those men weren't innocent, and I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who lost everything because hate won." After this incident, Jamal's reputation as a prisoner evolved. He was no longer seen as a political figure or hero, but began to be viewed as a thoughtful individual. In his fourth year, he completed his bachelor's degree. The graduation ceremony was held in the prison chapel. Marcus and Patricia came. This was a first step in rebuilding their relationship. "I'm proud of you, son," Marcus said, tears in his eyes. "Your grandfather will be proud too." In his fifth year, he joined a restorative justice program. This program organized mediated conversations between offenders and victims' families. Tommy O'Brien's daughter Lisa O'Brien indicated she wanted to speak with Jamal. The meeting was emotional. Lisa said, "I want to understand why you killed my father." Jamal was honest. "Your father participated in systematic torture of an innocent old man. I'm not saying murder was right, but his actions had consequences." This encounter broadened Jamal's perspective. Victims' families were also suffering. From his sixth year onward, Jamal began to take on a mentor role. He gave guidance to young inmates and emphasized the importance of education. During this period, he reconnected his relationship with his girlfriend, Alicia Williams. Alicia had become a social worker and was working in criminal justice reform. "I never stopped loving you," Alicia said. "I just needed time to understand what happened." In his seventh year, Jamal began a master's degree program. He focused on criminology, studying the relationship between institutional racism and crime. In his eighth year, on Big Will's anniversary, Jamal publicly expressed regret for the first time. In a letter he wrote to the prison newsletter, "I still believe my grandfather was murdered by hate, but I now understand that my response created more victims." This evolution was significant. Jamal was moving from black and white thinking toward embracing complexity. In the present day, Jamal was preparing for parole eligibility. The years he spent in prison had made him a different person. Still angry about injustice, but he had found constructive channels. At the end of 2024, Jamal Thompson is 31 years old and has served 5 more years. Having spent this time in Michigan Department of Corrections, he appears before us as a man who has undergone dramatic transformation. His current daily routine is structured and purposeful. He gets up at 6 a.m. and meditates. At 7 o'clock, he has breakfast, then works at the prison library. In the afternoon, he continues his master's degree coursework, and in the evening, he mentors younger inmates.
His psychological evaluations are consistently positive. Dr. Hayes' latest report, Mr. Thompson has shown remarkable growth and insight. His risk of reoffending is minimal. Family relationships have significantly improved. Marcus and Patricia visit monthly, their relationship stronger than ever. His siblings Keisha and Damon have also restored contact. His relationship with Alicia Williams has deepened. Both are considering marriage after Jamal's release. Alicia's work in criminal justice reform will be valuable experience for his future plans. His academic achievements are impressive. He completed his master's degree magna cum laude, and his thesis was published in an academic journal. He continues participating in the restorative justice program. So far, he has met with 3 victims' families. A recent meeting with Dave Kowalski's son Robert Kowalski was particularly impactful. "I hated you for years," Robert said. "But hearing about your grandfather's suffering, I still think what you did was wrong, but I can see why you felt driven to it." His parole hearing is scheduled for January 2025. His legal team is confident, but Jamal remains realistic. "I'm prepared for whatever decision they make." Criminal justice reform organizations have already reached out. The Southern Poverty Law Center, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and local Detroit organizations want to collaborate with Jamal. Media attention continues, but with a different tone. Recent articles focus on transformation and redemption. The prison administration considers Jamal a model prisoner. Warden Michael Davis: "If every inmate showed the growth Jamal has, our entire system would be different. His mental health has significantly improved. Prisons saved me from becoming consumed by hatred," Jamal reflects. Public opinion remains divided. Some view him as a hero fighting against racism, others see a cold-blooded killer. Jamal is comfortable with this ambiguity. "I'm neither hero nor monster." Looking forward, his goals are clear: systemic change through legal channels. "I want to work within the system to fix it." Jamal Thompson's story is not just one individual's fall and redemption, but a reflection of American society's deeper problems. Systematic racism, institutional failure, and the cycle of desperate actions tragically intersected in this case. Bagwell Thompson's death was preventable. If basic human decency had been shown at Murphy's Corner Coffee House, if the community hadn't remained silent about racial harassment, men would still be alive and Jamal would be a free man. But we cannot change history. We can only learn its lessons and work for a better future. Is Jamal's transformation in prison genuine? Time will tell. For families lost fathers, grandfathers, husbands, their pain is immeasurable and lasting. Jamal's family is also forever changed. Shame, guilt, and loss have marked them. As America continues to grapple with racial justice, Jamal Thompson's story serves as a reminder of the consequences of individual actions and societal failures. The question remains, can justice truly be served when institutional failures lead to desperate actions? The answer is complicated, but the conversation is essential. Jamal Thompson, now 31, waits for his parole hearing, carrying the weight of 4 lives taken and 1 life forever changed, his own.